Namaste everyone, this is Stephen from YogaWorks, and in this short session I'll teach you a little sequence which is great as a recovery if you've just gone for a run or a cycle. I like to do both activities. They're not the main part of my training, but I do really enjoy the freedom and the outdoors nature of both the running and cycling. So this is what I do when I just come back. So if we look at it, both of these sports use a couple of main muscle groups a lot, and these are the ones that we're going to be targeting in this session. So the muscle groups, there's 5 of them. One is the quads and the hip flexors, sort of the front of the thighs and the hips. One is the hamstrings, the backs of the thighs. One is the glutes, the back of the hips. One is the core, and then the last one is the calves. So we'll touch on all 5 of these. Some of our exercises are going to target multiple ones at the same time. So to start, just I'm going to turn sideways and tuck your toes underneath you. Sometimes it helps to come into a little squat, and then from there just lower the knees down. And you might need to invite the little toes to come along for this experience. And if you're new to this, or this feels quite intense, then just lean a bit forward and place your hands next to the knees. If you already feel a nice stretch at the soles of the feet and the toes, then you can stay here. Or if you can take a little bit more intensity, then you can lean more and more back, and if it's possible, sit your full body weight onto the heels with the toes tucked under. This pose is sometimes called the toe breaker pose. I've never found some toes sprinkled around my yoga mat, so don't worry. But this is really great because there's all this fascia connective tissue which runs through the legs, and they originate in the foot. It makes a sort of a stirrup underneath the center of the foot. It's a good place to start. Also probably for running and cycling, we're wearing special shoes. So it's good to do this for a little bit afterwards. And then you can slowly lean forward if you weren't already, and release the toes. And it can be nice to just tap the tops of the feet to let the blood flow into there again. And then come to sit on your heels, but place your right foot next to the left knee. So we're in a sort of combat stance, I think this is sometimes called. And now slide your right heel a little bit back so that let your knee go over the ankle. Usually we don't do this, but if there's not a lot of weight, then this is actually not a problem at all. And then feel how your knee can track in the direction of the second and the third toe. And at the same time, keep the right heel a little bit heavy, so don't allow it to lift up. And now we're getting into the calf, the Achilles area of that right lower leg. And if you feel you need a little bit more weight, what you can do is just lean your body weight, or with your hands you can lean it onto that right knee and thigh, and keep grounding that right heel down beneath you at the back. So you should feel a good calf stretch. You can lean your full body weight onto that thigh if you like, and just feel the space at the back of that right lower leg. Your quads obviously working hard, especially for running. Every time you jump off from the ball of the foot, that's your calf helping with that movement. And now slowly release that pressure. Just place your hands behind you and stay in the same pose and lift your hips up a little bit. So whatever's on the mat, you can push it down. Whatever's not on the mat, you can lift it up. You can even lean the head back a little bit. But we're mainly after the front of this left thigh and hip here. The quads, the hip flexors. And then slowly lower down. Now swap sides. Right knee down. I'm sitting on the right heel and the left foot next to the right knee. And then this might be enough actually if you lean forward, if you're a bit tight at the back of the calf and the Achilles, then this is it. Or you might be able to pull that heel a bit back and track the knee forward over the second and third toe. Nice. This might be it. Or you apply gentle pressure with the hands. Or if you feel like you need more weight, more intensity, you can place the whole upper body to push down on that thigh. As before, keep the left heel heavy and really focus on the length in the left calf, the back of that lower part of the leg. Couple of breaths here. We're just going to bring awareness, a bit of a stretch into these areas, but we don't want to go too far. You just went for a run or a cycle, or maybe you're just doing this to have a nice stretch around the hips. That's also a great way to practice, of course. And then release that. I like to slide the left foot so it's next to the right knee again. Hands behind you, and then just lift the hips up a little bit. Any amount is good until you feel nice length at the front of the right thigh, the front of the right hip. Couple of breaths here just to let that sink in. And then slowly lower back down. Nice, we're going to come into a lunge, so turn to the front of your mat and step your right foot forward. And this might be accessible to you, but if it's not, if you feel a bit of tightness around the hips, then just grab a set of blocks or any other prop that helps you lift the hands up a bit. And just use it to rest the hands. So there's a little bit less weight on the lower body here. And all we're doing here is softening the hips down. And we're trying to get a nice length in the front of the left thigh, the front of the left hip. Take a few breaths here and just allow your body to sink into this pose. And you might be feeling all kinds of restrictions around the hips. If you come back to this practice often, you will find a bit more space over time. But also keep in mind, you don't want to be too flexible, especially if you do a lot of races. Because then you need that power that the muscles generate. And then from here, keep the blocks if you've got them. Just slide the hips back and maybe the right heel goes a little bit forward. And it's perfectly okay to keep a little bend in that right knee. But what I'm doing here is I'm pulling that right hip back behind me and I'm lengthening the spine. Just lengthening the spine. So don't think you have to go as low as possible, not at all. Pull the right hip back, lengthen the spine, and just use your blocks to support the hands. Of course, if you don't need blocks, your hands might be all the way down. Same difference. And now we're targeting right hamstring. You will feel that. And see if you can feel that in the middle of the muscle. Not behind the knee, it's a bad sign. Not around the sit bone, but in the belly of the hamstring. You might need to go a little bit softly just to do that. Another breath or so, and then re-bend that front knee. You won't need your blocks for the next one. Place your left hand inside the right foot and stretch your right arm back. You can stay here, or if it's possible, see if you can bend that back knee and hold your back foot in the hand. This is a great way to get to the quads. One of the main powerhouse muscles when you go running and cycling. And then they also tend to get really tight when you spend a lot of time sitting at a desk. So it's good to get to them often. Maybe even for a few minutes on a daily basis is recommended. And then gently release that back foot. Now stay here, but just wiggle your right foot a bit more to in front of the belly and then turn it out to the side of your mat. Now we're going to turn onto the outside edge of the back foot as well. And this is really great. I find one of my favorite ways to get into outer hips. And I'm not using this as a strength pose, but I'm just using it as a deep stretch for the outer hips. Also nice to get into the side body a little bit, the obliques, which is part of the core. It's no doubt working hard as well when you exercise. So just hang out here. Another option, which I sometimes like to do, is bring that right hand down and just fold a little bit more forward if there's space for you to do that inside the right knee. And I just feel a little bit of a deeper stretch at the outer right hip when I do that. And then release that. Just turn to center, swap the legs, left foot forward. You might need your blocks again to place alongside the left heel on either side. Slide the right knee a little bit back. And just come into this simple lunge, No need to make things very complicated. You want to get to a little routine that you can easily remember, that you can do by yourself, even if you don't have this video, this guidance. Couple of breaths, feel whatever there is to feel, allow your body to soften into this. It's good to use this as a recovery. So we're not pushing as hard as we can. That's what we already did in our training just before. And then shift the hips back. Straighten that front leg a little bit more. You can walk the blocks back if you've got them. And then lengthen the spine. So we're not rounding and coming as low as possible. We're actually lengthening forward and up. And then with that left hip, I'm just pulling back slightly. If there's still a bend in that left knee, no problem at all. It's even recommended, especially if you've got tighter, or should I say, stronger hamstrings. Stronger sounds better than tighter, doesn't it? So stay for a few breaths. A nice length in the back of that left thigh. But don't go too far. You don't need to be doing the splits. You're a runner or a cyclist, or maybe you work in an office. So the splits wouldn't be useful, but some space around the hips is going to be useful in whatever we do in our daily lives. So that's what we're after. Rebend. Place the blocks off to the side. We're getting into the quads now. So right hand stays inside left foot. Left hand, I'm stretching it back. If you can't reach the foot, then don't worry about it. Just stay here a little bit longer. Or if you are able to deliver the foot in your hand, also good. Stay for a couple of slow breaths. So now feel the front of that right thigh. And just invite and visualize a bit of space, a bit of freedom around your hip joint. It's not just the stretch that counts, but also the attention that we place on it. Gently release. Now we're coming to that hammock and wiggle the left foot a bit to the side, turn the toes to the side of the mat. I'm coming to the outside edge of that right foot and I'm just hanging the hips down. Hanging the hips down. And just allow gravity to gently invite you down here. Feel a nice stretch at the right waist and the outer hips on both sides. And if you like this on the previous side, you can bend forward a little bit more inside that left knee, if it feels good. And then slowly release. Now keep the feet more or less the same, but just swivel to the long edge of the mat with wide legs. So now we get into inner thighs a little bit. The adductors, which are also involved in all these movements for running and for cycling. Now turn the left toes a little bit out, 45 degrees. bend the left knee. And then gently, I like to push a little bit with that left forearm inside the thigh or inside the knee, and then soften the hips down. Strong stretch in the inner thighs, especially on the side of the straight leg here, the right side. And then return to center, turn the left toes in, right toes a bit out. Bend that right knee. And if you like, apply a light pressure with the right forearm inside your right thigh. At the same time, soften the hips down. Keep the breath nice and soft. The breath will tell you if you're going too fast or too far, then it's not going to feel so nice, and the breath will not keep up. So it's a good measure of where you are. Nice. Slowly release. Turn to the front of the mat. I'm going to do left leg first because it happens to be already in position. We're setting up for pigeon pose. Nice outer hip work. Walk the right leg a little bit back. If you find that left hip is very high and it needs some support, then just grab a cushion, a blanket, a block, and place it under that left hip. If you need a deeper stretch, you can move that left foot a bit higher to the top of the mat. I'm going to go about halfway, and then square off your chest to the front, bend your elbows, and pull that left hip down and back. Just hold this for a couple of breaths. Might be intense, or it might be not so intense for you. Just notice where you're at. And of course you can release the elbows down if that's more comfortable. And then release. Let's swap sides. Right knee forward. So keep the right knee to the right side of your mat. The right foot will be to the left side of the mat. I'm walking my left leg back behind me. And if it's possible, I'm lifting that right foot a little bit higher. And then my hip is a bit lifted, so I'm going to pad it with a block underneath, so I have something to push down into. Nice. Turn the chest forward. Stay here if you like. Or lean a little bit forward, but again, don't round to come down with your forehead. Think more chest to the front of the mat and pulling right hip back. That's the most effective way to stretch the muscles in the glutes and outer hips, which have just worked hard for your run or your cycle, or maybe for a day at the office. And then slowly release. You can move the block. Swing your left leg forward and then just lie down on your back. We'll end with spine twist to get into the core region a little bit more. Bend your left knee and squeeze it into the chest. In fact, let's do both legs together to keep it simple. Both knees into the chest. Open your arms wide, in line with the shoulders, and drop your knees to the right. They might be hovering, you can place something underneath, or even your fist. Or if they come all the way down, that's also fine. And what I like to do is place the right hand on that top left knee, just for a bit of anchoring down. Now you have arrived in the restful space. Take a few breaths to unwind. And then come back to center, lift the knees to the middle. And then lower both knees over to the left side. If they're hovering, put something underneath. Or they could go all the way down. You can place the left hand on top of the right knee. Right hand stretch it out to the right. Make the upper back nice and heavy and relaxed. And then soften all the muscles around the lower back, the waist, the belly, your whole core region. See if you can direct a couple of breaths into that center. And invite a little bit more space. Slowly release. I would recommend to just straighten arms and legs and do a brief shavasana, couple of minutes lying on your back without doing anything really. It's always really beneficial. Or if it's time for you to go, then come up into sitting. Thank you so much for joining me for this full, quick recovery. If you just went running or cycling, I hope you enjoyed. Namaste. See you soon.